Good morning. It is July. It is very hot outside. My wardrobe does not have enough short-sleeved dresses in it. We're going to go ahead and solve that today. Here is my fabric. As you can see, I've already cut a project out of this some years ago, so this is just what I've got lying around, but it's a wonderful summery color. Full disclosure, I did have something slightly more interesting, history-bounding for July, but I've spent the last week and a half being quite sick, so I needed to do a more simple project for July, and then my original July project is going to now become my August project. Anyways, let's cut some fabric. Okay, so, hi Angus. Have you ever looked at fabric and thought, oh, I've got so much, and then you start cutting it and you don't have that much? Anyways, so where his, hi baby, so where his lordship is sitting, you can see that I've got my pattern pieces kind of laid out. Basically, when I originally cut this in like 2017, I cut it injudiciously, and I took like a whole panel out of essentially the middle, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is. What I'm gonna have to do is piece a couple of the things we're doing. So this is the center front, sorry, not the center front, this is the side front panel, and I can get this one whole here, and then I've marked where it's going to be on the other side, and the fabric's kind of falling off the table. And then the center front panel, I can get the skirt out of this section and the top out of this section right here. And then for the side back panels, I'm going to have to piece those as well. The skirt will be this and this. And then there's some extra fabric you can't see laying on the floor over there that will make up the bodice portion of that. Good morning. Angus is having his customary mid-morning nap. And let's take a look at what the fabric looks like this morning. Okay, here we go. We've got all of the pieces except for the sleeves and also the pockets. And I'm gonna iron some of these pieces. I don't normally iron cotton knits, but some of this is just so exceptionally wrinkled that it needs ironing. Okay, so for the bodice, I did want to make like a V shape for the waist seam. And so the first thing I did was I tested it on a scrap piece of fabric, looked up how to do an inset V, and it's actually not as difficult as I thought it would be, which is great. Basically what you do is once you've got the seam allowance in whatever the lower piece is, you have to cut a slit right down to the seam allowance, which for me was the scary part. Then you put a pin through the upper fabric into the lower fabric right under where the seam allowance is. And then you have to spread the lower piece apart to line up the edges of that piece with the edges of the upper piece. Once that is done, you can just go ahead and pin it normally along the seam allowance and stitch it down. Good morning. So this is what we have today. The other day I did the waist seams in the panels that needed it, and then I pinned and tacked everything together. I tend to do that off camera just because I feel like it's not the most interesting content. So my goal for today is to get at least 2 of these long seams done, and then tomorrow, sorry, Angus is over here distracting me. Tomorrow I'm gonna look at the very small amount of fabric I have left and do the sleeves and the pockets. And you know, I said the other day I don't really have that many summery dresses, but I didn't realize that it was like zero. I don't have any dresses in summer colors at all. I've got, you know, dark purple, brown, green, red. I don't have anything in like blues or pinks. So yeah, this would be a good addition to my wardrobe. Is the dress so far. So I've done most of the long seams. I just stopped here at the sides where the pockets are. You can see where I kind of left the needles in where I stopped. And then this is all the fabric that we have left. So I need to get 2 pockets and 2 sleeves out of this. This is my pocket pattern, by the way. So I think if I cut judiciously, I should be able to get each pocket out of one of these, and then I'm gonna have to find a way to make these work for the sleeves. So I almost got it to work. You can see I've got 3 pocket pieces. I need 4, and then here's the, you know, dregs of the pocket cutouts. I'm just gonna be down to like tiny scraps for this project. However, my pocket piece does not quite fit onto this fabric. It's missing like this little edge right here. So I did think about potentially doing it like so, but I would still need to piece it, and I would rather do something where I'm piecing and have the pieced part be on the back here, because that's not going to put as much strain on the pocket as if I have to piece the bottom. So I'm thinking I'm gonna go ahead and just take a little bit from here and go ahead and piece that. I haven't had to piece pockets before, but you know what? There's a first time for everything. Yeah, so we just need a little bit of the back here. The main issue is gonna be having enough overlap. Hi, baby. He's inspecting my pocket scraps. Hello. So we've got one very cute cat. I just could not resist sharing him with you, so sorry about the awkward angle. And then these are the 2 scraps with which I'm gonna make the sleeves. This is all the fabric that I have left after making the pockets. So I think what I'm gonna do first is just pin these onto the arm's eyes and see what happens and go from there. This looks a little wizardy, which is not my intent, but I think what I can do is there's 2 different ways to make flutter sleeves, which is what I had already actually planned for this dress, since they're very summery and very breezy and comfortable. And then it turns out that that's all the fabric I have, so it fits really well. Anyways, but there's a way to do flutter sleeves where there's like a little cap sleeve. Oh, hello, Angus. He just shoved the door open because, you know, he owns this house. Where you do like a little cap sleeve and then you gather the fabric into it. And since I've got so much extra here, I may as well do this and just make it, you know, maximum floof. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. So I got caught up and I forgot to film this next part, which I'll just talk through what I did. So basically this is just a half section. Hello, Angus. So I then put it down on a larger piece of fabric and I traced it out so that, sorry, let me move this around his lordship's tail, so that this is the, sir. Okay, so this is the entire sleeve pattern. So you can see that I extended it out to this edge here to fit the more flutter sleeve slash butterfly sleeve template. I realized that I made a mistake, so obviously I'm gonna tell you about it. I just finished the first sleeve. I've got the second sleeve right here. Just finished putting the first sleeve onto the arm's eye, and I realized that one of the things I didn't like about this pattern is that the arm's eye is an inch larger on the back than it is on the front, which means that my sleeve doesn't quite match up, and I just don't have enough fabric to recut these, so I'm gonna have to just trim the sleeve down, which will make it less voluminous than I wanted, but it is what it is. I still think they're gonna look pretty nice, so we'll just move forward with it. We are finally down to the last little bit of finishing work on this, which is finishing the neckline. I don't know if you can tell from there, I'll get a close-up, but there is some unevenness into the neckline here because when I was cutting this out, there was only one piece that was going to be the right size to make this top portion of the center front out of, and I just had to cut it high enough that there were little bits coming out of the neckline, and I just didn't have any other choice. There were no other pieces of fabric that were the right size for it. So when finishing the neckline, I'm not only doing it for security to like stop this from stretching out of its correct shape, but also because otherwise it's gonna make the collar look really weird unless I cut it wider, which I don't want to do. So here we go. So the first step to making the facing is deciding how much we need. I went ahead and I measured the front of this, got about 7.5 inches, and then the back I got 4 inches. Now this is just for 1/2. I'm planning on making the binding half length here, so it's going to be stitched together at the center front and then stitched together at the center back. So there will be 2 pieces of binding, and each will start at the center back and go around to the center front. I have a couple of very long, thin scraps, so these should do pretty nicely. I think I can probably get everything I need out of this. We will just have to see. So I measured this, it's definitely wide enough. I need 4 inches because each piece of the facing is going to be about 2 inches wide. So now I just need to make sure, it actually needs to be 13 inches, not 12, because of seam allowance. So now I just need to make sure that I have 13 inches long by 4 inches wide before I cut. Looks like we have enough, so we're ready to draw some stitch lines and cut. Quick tip for if you're cutting small pieces of cotton jersey or another stretch fabric, it works better for drawing the stitch lines if you put it on another piece of fabric, because then it'll stick to that instead of like if I just have it on this surface, it's gonna go ahead and slide around. Oh, hello Angus, say hi to everyone. Yes, he's come to inspect my work. So I failed to show how to attach this, sorry, so let me just explain it. So that seam that we put down in the middle between the 2 pieces just matches up with the center front point, and then you do the same thing in the back with the center back point, and then pin, tack all along, all around, and this is going to be the right side eventually, so I flipped the dress to the right side and then put this down right sides together, and now I am stitching it. Taking the facing and folding it over. So basically it's 1 fold over the top of the seam allowance. Grab a pin. This is a good place to use pins with large heads. And then I'm pinning straight through, just like I would if I was doing like a waistband on a skirt, because otherwise the pins are going to start bending. Once you're done with that, you're going to fold it over again. I like to do the first fold and then go around and do the second fold, but if you want to do both folds at once, that's totally fine. So you can see where I kind of started to do the second fold here and then tack it down, so let me show you. So for the second fold, it's literally just, you know, figure out where the line of stitching is that attached it, and then I like to kind of crease it a little bit to show myself where that line is, then pinch on the crease line, and just turn it over and try to make sure that this section's laying flat if you're working with a stretch fabric. You don't want it to roll because that's going to look weird underneath the facing. And then just put the pin so that it's going to hold everything in place. And that's basically everything you need to do before tacking it. So once I have the entire facing tacked into place, which took about an hour, this is very fiddly work, the last thing that I need to do is just stitch this down with a simple felling stitch. One of the nice things about having several layers here is that instead of putting the stitch into the one layer of the dress where it would be visible from the outside, I'm putting it just inside that layer of stitching, and it's ending up going through the seam allowance. So this should be enough to keep it in place, but we're not going to get any awkward little puckers right next to the neckline, which would be super noticeable.